Okay, so it's 2 o'clock.
Yep.
So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the AfaxysGPO-New Supplier Spotlight. We understand your time is valuable, and we appreciate that you have chosen to join our webinar. We believe you'll find this information shared here today very beneficial to your healthcare organization. Our agenda for today is, our agenda for the meeting today features 4 new Afaxys contracted suppliers. Each will spend 10 minutes sharing with you their products offered to the Afaxys members. Note that we will offer a Q&A session at the end. So hold your questions until the end. You can type them in and we will see those questions and we will address those questions at the end. So we are very excited to announce our 4 new contracts to the GPO list at Afaxys. They are Seek, Women's Health, Fujifilm, Gateway, and Medicine. So welcome you guys and thank you for joining. And before we begin the webinar today, I'd like to introduce our GPO team here at Afaxys. I'm Angela Hensel. I run the day-to-day operations of the GPO. We have Sue Simons, who is our marketing manager. She is our marketing expert for the GPO. We have Kelsey Kobe and Rachel Seaman. They are our customer engagement representatives, and they support the members with any customer service related issues or questions. So thank you all for being here today too. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to our first contracted supplier, Seek. And I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Tracy Bennett. She's the Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Seek.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Angela, for the introduction. I'm very excited to be here today, and I will try to keep this within my 10 minutes. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So really to give you the basic foundation, Seek was founded on the idea that the pelvic exam can be improved by both the provider's perspective and the patient perspective. And we're really just trying to introduce products that will help providers give the best care possible, but also have that patient experience be a lot better. You can go on the next slide, please. Just a snapshot of our team, our core team, mostly females, as you can see, and then we've had some great clinical advisors. Next slide, please. Just to highlight some design awards that we won recently with our products. Next slide, please. This is my favorite slide. This is kind of one of the most important ones I like to show. If you look at the difference between the two, do you notice a difference? No, and that's the sad part, right? So the current metal vaginal speculum that's used today was invented 150 years ago, and we're still using it today. That's not acceptable for the providers or the patients. So we decided to make a change. Next slide, please. Next slide. So this is what I call our family portrait. So we've come up with 3 tools that really are designed to fit the needs of most patients and providers. And really the whole goal again is to give the patient a better experience, but also give the provider better access, visibility, and to make the whole experience better for the entire office staff, from using the product to cleaning the product. The next slide, please. I'll start with the Nella New spec. Of course, I'm sure you can imagine that when we surveyed all the women who used the metal speculum previously or the plastic speculum to our device, 99% for the new device. And I'll go into the more details with the next slide if you want to go to the next slide. So this is just to kind of show you a snapshot. If you look at ours on the far left in the most common metal ones, you know, if you were a patient, which one would you prefer? And for the men, I always say, if it was your wife, your daughter, your sister, your mother, any female relative, which one would you prefer for them? I think the answer is very clear. Next slide, please. So the biggest advantage we have, and I kind of like to show it in person if you guys can see this, obviously the narrow size, patient comfort, it's about the size of a regular tampon, which most providers will say, oh, that's too narrow for me, it's not going to work for most of my patients. But really our hidden kind of secret trick here is these built-in lateral sidewall retractors, which you can see on the bottom picture there. So really, we have a lot of great clinical data. We've been working on this for 5 years, and we just launched this in August this year, that most people prefer our product to the metal speculum for a number of different reasons. And you can go into the next slide. I'll get into a little more detail. First thing, when I'm holding the metal and the new spec side by side, guess what? The metal feels cool to touch, the new spec does not. So your first advantage is that you don't need to worry about warming them, putting them in a warming drawer, or running them under warm water like some providers do. You also don't need to use lubrication on them because it's a smooth polymer, but it's actually stronger than the metal speculum. With the lateral side walls that come out, that keep the side walls back, so you can actually have greater visibility and access to the cervix, which makes the provider's job easier and sometimes saves them some really important time when they're on a pinch for time. A couple other minor things. This is a 90-degree angle. This is a 101-degree angle, so it's more ergonomical for something they use on a daily basis, sometimes 20, 30 times per day. But also, you ever hear the provider say, you know, have the patient scooch down because they don't want this to hit the bottom of the patient? You don't need to scooch down because you have the wider angle, so this is not going to hit hitting the bottom of the patient. Number one, a source of cross-contamination. Number two, that it's not comfortable for the patient. It's a little embarrassing for them. Very ergonomical, very quiet. When I open it up, you don't hear any noise whatsoever. Single click locks it into place. Now it's locked. And then a single click to unlock it and close. It is designed for one size fits most, and it works pretty well on BMIs up to, I'd say, the mid 40s. Next slide, please. These are just some patient types that we recommend the new spec on. And the patients that have a higher BMI or extensive prolapse, we actually recommend the View Sleeve, which I'll show you that in a second too. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. All right, the View Light, another important gadget. So this works on any speculum, but not only ours, but any speculum that's currently on the market. And I always like to show it quickly like this. It's single use. You pull the tab, and it has really great illumination, as close to the cervix as you can possibly get. Of course, it's LED, so you can touch it, it never gets hot. And again, it works on any product, including the metal and the plastic ones. And think about it, not for every single patient, for those you really struggle with that visibility and illumination, it's great for those patients. Especially in COVID time, it comes in handy having something that's disposable, and you don't have to worry about reprocessing the exam, the gooseneck light, or the overhead light. Next slide, please. Just kind of a shadow-free illumination, great for a lot of procedures. Next slide, please. And just to compare it to the gooseneck, as you can see, next slide, please. You can see how it has a much brighter lux output compared to the gooseneck, and also some of the integrated light sources. Next slide. The View Sleeve. Now, for those patients that are heavier, have multiple, say, vaginal deliveries, have a BMI of like the mid 40s or higher, this probably isn't going to be the best device for them. And that's where we recommend something called the View Sleeve, which is a separate product. Next slide, please. What this does is it does a great job using an existing speculum. I'm just going to show you two in a metal speculum. It does a great job of keeping the lateral sidewalls back. Great for procedures, also great for leaps. It actually protects the patient's sidewall against any potential burns. You can actually touch the bovie directly to this and the patient will not feel it at all. Press pair it with a light source. A really great product for procedures, whether you're doing IUD insertion removal, in-office hysteroscopy, any type of procedure where you need that access, window opening and light source. Next slide, please. These are some of the workarounds that we've seen on the market, which obviously they're what we consider just ineffective and inefficient, and quite frankly, not professional. Your patient doesn't want to see you pull out a condom or a rubber glove and try to do a makeshift one. So this is what we call the first professional solution for the patients and for the providers. Next slide, please. And again, which one would you prefer? So when I had the View Sleeve, I don't have to size up if I can't see. So if I'm going to use this on a regular exam and I can't see, typically the next thing to do is size up to a medium or even a large grade. Which one would you prefer? You always want to prefer the smaller one for patient comfort. Next slide, please. Just to kind of show you how it works, it doesn't slide out of place. It stays on the speculum and only comes off when you take it off, and it's much more comfortable for the patient. Next slide, please. Just a quick visualization of the cervix at the end, one without the view sleeve and one with the view sleeve. Great comparison. Don't have that sidewall tissue creep in. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And this is what I'm really excited. We're able to offer you a 38% discount on all of our products. You can either order directly on our website or through our email system or calling us, whatever is more convenient for you. And we're really excited to partner with such a great organization. And the one thing I've noticed about some of the members that I've had interaction with too so far, most of the providers, you can tell they truly care about patient comfort and patient care. And these products really do make a difference in that patient experience. But also, more importantly, it makes a difference in the day-to-day, with the providers. It gives them that better visibility, better access, and of course, keep the patients happy. So thank you so much for your time today, and I'll stick around to the end if you have any questions. We also have a lot of information on our website, videos, etc.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Bennett. That was a very informative presentation, and we are excited to have Seek on board as a contracted supplier.
My pleasure.
Okay. You'll see a polling question in front of you. If you'd like to answer the question and submit. So it says the current metovaginal speculum being used today was invented how many years ago? 150 years ago.
Yep.
I think we most of us remembered that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Great job.
Awesome. Okay. Next up, we have Mr. Dean Ehlers. He's the National Director of Strategic Business Management at Fujifilm Sonosite. Welcome, Dean, and please take it away.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
That's a good sign. Okay. I have a slide deck here that I'm going to move through rather quickly because Sue told me I had 10 minutes and she has a virtual hook. So I'm going to get started here. Sonosite is a little bit unusual in that we began as a military project. DARPA, which is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, funded us in the mid-90s. At that time, they approached 3 ultrasound companies, leading companies being ATL, which is now Philips, Accusong, which is now Siemens, and GE, which is still GE. And they gave us the specs and requirements for a product that they needed for the battlefield. So specs were unusual in that the product had to weigh less than 10 pounds, had to boot up in less than 20 seconds. It had to be able to withstand 3 consecutive drops from a height of 1 meter with the transducer attached and still function. It had to be easy to use because it was going to be used by corpsmen, at least that's what we thought at the time. And excuse me. And education was a big part of this thing. So anyway, next slide, please. Here's a brief history. I'm not going to go through every point on here, but in '95, DARPA got involved with us and sent us the specs. In '98, the project was finished, basically in late '98. ATL spun Sonosite out because we were a money loser. In '99, we shipped our first product really to the military early in '99. And in true military fashion, they bought a boatload of them and put them all in storage. So ATL at that time was floundering. We were approaching pretty much the routine markets, being radiology, cardiology, OBGYN, and vascular. And the problem was the product really didn't have a place there. People still use their big box units to go portable, and there was no reason to have a Sonosite. So the company floundered. Well, between '99 and 2009, an event happened that changed everything for us, and that was the first Gulf War. So all that stuff the military had stockpiled got shipped out to the point of conflict. And as it often turns out, it was not medical corpsmen or whoever you thought was going to use it, it wound up being somebody else. So the product was used by physicians primarily in what I guess I would call a MASH unit or a mobile army surgical. came back to their practices in the United States, that being primarily emergency medicine and trauma, they decided they had to have one of those Sonosite things in their department. Well, the light went off. That was it. Our market was not traditional. It was the non-traditional imager. So it began with emergency medicine and trauma, then moved into critical care, and then into anesthesia. And to this day, about 60% of our business goes to those markets. So now I'm going to fast forward to 2012. Sonosite was purchased by Fuji. And now I'll fast forward to the end here. In 2019 and actually into 2020, we've got about 140,000 systems installed. Please. Next slide. There we go. All right. So here's what we're known for, and these are really the pillars of the company. This is my third career. I won't tell you how long I've been around, but nonetheless, every company I worked for had a set of pillars. I couldn't tell you what the previous two companies were. Everybody at Sonosite knows. And basically, if we don't meet these requirements, basic requirements, the product is not built. The military spends a lot of money with Sonosite, and we have it really in every branch and in every location of the military, so we still build military specifications. Probably two more important things on here are durability and reliability. The mean failure rate of our products is about one failure every 5 years. Everybody with ultrasound will tell you their product is easy to use. I can assure you that's not true. I'm a sonographer by background. Ours are easy to use, and the reason I say that is if we were to sit down for half an hour with any of you, you could use our instrument without fail. Image quality is superb, and frankly, there's a lot of good image quality out there now. We're not alone. And the last thing is education. This was added more recently. And the reason being is we discovered early on that if we support our customers, again, who are basically non-traditional imagers, and show them how to use the instrument and help them with different procedures and diagnostics, they will almost certainly come back to us. Next slide, please. All right, I'm going to show you two examples of hospital groups. And this is something that's duplicated really universally across the United States. If you look at this Georgia health system, since 2002, they've purchased about 50 units, spent a little over $2 million, and their total cost for repairs and warranties has been about $61,000. So as a percent of all the equipment expenditures, it's less than 3%. And the average service cost annually is far less than 1%. So basically, we're telling you, when you buy something from Sonosite, your total cost of ownership is essentially what you paid for the system. Moving down to the bottom of the screen, if you look at clinical education and support, in the last 5 or 6 years, these are the efforts we've made with this institution or this group of hospitals to support them. This is something, believe me, that no other ultrasound company will do. They'll typically charge you $1,500 a day plus expenses. This is gratis from Sonosite. Next slide, please. Okay, here's another unit, another group a little bit bigger, it's Vanderbilt. And you can see that over the years, they've purchased about 110 units from us for about $4.8 million. Again, if you look at repairs and repairs with warranties, it's almost identical to what you saw before. And basically, the difference comes up in warranties. We sell very few warranties. It's just something that is not common with our product because it's so reliable. Same thing here, looking at education at the bottom. The support over the last 5 or 6 years since we began tracking education, and we made 135 visits or efforts with this hospital group. And again, this is very unusual in the marketplace. Next slide, please. All right, we have two systems on the agreement with Afaxys. The first is the Edge 2, which is a traditional looking clamshell type unit. The difference with this is it's an actual ultrasound system and not a computer that's been forced through software to produce ultrasound. So we don't have the issues that you have with Microsoft Windows. Again, this is proprietary software. It's virtually impervious to any viruses or anything else. Next slide, please. Next slide, there we go. So this is the S2 ultrasound system, which really has the same engine as the previous model I just showed you. The difference here is it's very, very simple to use. It's got 2 buttons, and the rest is software driven through, panels on the system itself. So this would be something you would use in a very tight situation. You can be wall mounted and pull it out, do your procedure or whatever it is, and then push it back against the wall and move on. Next slide, please. Here's how the pricing works out for these. Both systems have color steep needle profiling, which means it'll follow the needle you use to do whatever kind of procedure you're doing on the patient. It's very easy to see. As DICOM, in case you're interested in that, obviously OB calcs, a couple of transducers, a stand, and a printer. So the way it works, here's the list. Tier 1, any Afaxys member has access to Tier 1 on either one of these systems. Tier 2 requires a letter of commitment, where basically you say you're going to buy 100% of your product, ultrasound product, from Sonosite for the term of the agreement. Next slide, please. Okay, our product has a 5-year warranty that includes transducers. So this is very unusual in the market. We've had competitors now try to duplicate the warranty, but the big difference is typically in transducers. Our transducers are actually more reliable than our units themselves. So if we're having one failure every 5 years on a product, on a unit, we have less than that with the transducer. You can buy extended warranties. Very few customers do, simply because the instrument doesn't break. It breaks so rarely, it doesn't make sense. Next slide, please. All right. So education, I mentioned, was a big deal with Sonosite. If you look at the company itself, our number 1 expenditure is people, which is typical. Number 2 is research and development. And number 3 is education, which is incredibly unusual. We spend millions every year on education. Every Sonosite customer has access to the Sonosite Institute. It's password protected. But nonetheless, the amount of content available on the Sonosite Institute is enormous, to the point of nearly being overwhelming. Next slide, please. Okay, in the end, we don't do PMs because we don't have to. Again, with the military, you can't do a PM on the battlefield, so that was taken care of up front. We have no filters that need to be cleaned. Service contracts are certainly optional. We sell very few of those. Transducer replacements is really a no questions asked. We just replace the transducer. Customer support, we answer 98% of all of our calls within 1 minute. And you already know about repairs. We don't have field service. We just send you a loaner. In the end, the difference between us and our competitors is you spend about 0.5% of the total cost of your equipment on service, and the average with our with our competitors is 10%. And I think that's it. Next slide. There is no next slide. All right. And I'll say that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Dean, and we appreciate that very informative presentation. And I have to say, I love telling members that we have a battleground ready product. It just excites me. And one thing I wanted to follow up with, Dean mentioned that letter of commitment. If that's something that you're considering, then you can find that out on the Afaxys website, or you can always reach out to Kelsey or Rachel, your customer engagement rep, and they can help you with that information as well. So we'll move
Thank you,
on.
everyone.
Yes, thank you. So we'll move on now to Gateway. I'd like to introduce you to Hope Clark. She's the project manager at Gateway. Hope?
Hey, thanks so much for having me. All right, so who are we? Gateway is an industry-leading exhibit house in St. Louis, Missouri. So for those of you that aren't really familiar with that term exhibit house, what it means basically is that during normal business operations, the scope of our business really is in designing, fabricating, installing really wonderful custom trade show exhibit spaces and structures. So that's what we've been doing for decades now, rebranded 4 years ago, going on 5 years as Gateway. But in March of 2020, when the pandemic really started rearing up in the States, we noticed, okay, trade shows are going to be completely done for the foreseeable future any day now. So our leadership team got together, put themselves in a room, and came up with the idea that we needed to provide service where we could and use our skills and our personnel to start coming up with ways to help businesses, offices with PPE, and we pivoted to creating plexiglass shields. What we noticed pretty quickly was that compared to building, double-decker exhibits and then having to deal with all of that, this was relatively easy. So we really quickly started to get some expertise in that area, and we've supplied solutions now to businesses all over the country, anywhere from small local nonprofits to Fortune 500 companies. We've been really fortunate to stay incredibly busy with that during this time. And we've really enjoyed getting to have a hand in allowing businesses to reopen safely and to keep people in our community and in the global community safe during this time. So we've been really enjoying doing that these last couple of months. We have a full service sorry, could you go back? Apologies. We have a full service custom fabrication shop, so we can get most of our orders fulfilled within 3 to 5 days of purchase. For larger orders, if several hundred barriers, it can take a little bit longer, but by and large, everything's able to get done in just a couple of days. So, okay, great, thanks. Next slide. All right, with our contract with Afaxys, we have 3 primary product lines that we are offering. The first is our PowerPlex plexiglass shields. So it's referring to the 2 images that you'll see at the top, the kind of desktop solutions. Barriers are really good for reception counters, cafeterias, anything like that. We offer some standard sizing, which we'll address in a moment, as well as custom options. We also have the GoGuard plexiglass shields, which is shown on the bottom right. We have some standard sizes, 2 standard sizes, and then can also do custom sizes too. So those are really helpful for creating some protection and privacy or protection on the go. And then we have airless disinfectant sprayers. We actually became an authorized distributor for Graco. So we've got the Graco Spray sprayers and then a BioEsk botanical disinfectant solution, which is really wonderful, and I can talk a bit more about on a different slide. Next, please. All right, so looking into the PowerPlex options that we offer, again, just some more photos on the right. They're really great for cafeterias, conference rooms, cubicles, all that kind of thing. Everything that we've designed has been easy and tool-free to set up. So non-permanent, you can take it off when you need to, but they're sturdy and they won't go anywhere while they are up. We have 2 different thicknesses of acrylic that we can offer, so you can get some cost savings if you wanted to go with something that's just as sturdy but not quite as thick. And then we have a couple of different designs. We can do return walls or just supportive feet if you want a little bit less of a footprint there. And then we can also cut in transaction windows. So you'll see the bottom right image has a little window where you can kind of slide money or guards or whatever needs to happen. We have 3 standard sizes, but everything is customizable if you'd like. We've probably done the majority of our business has ended up being custom, and we've just been able to do things so quickly that the pricing really isn't significantly different for doing custom versus standard. So for the standard size, we start at $125 per shield plus shipping and up. That's for the 3/16 inch acrylic. And again, everything can be done in 2 thicknesses. So we have some options there for cost savings. Next slide, please. Again, just some more photos that we have. These are mostly local. We've done conference rooms, cafeterias, so really good for if you have like a larger hospital setting and you need to find places where people can still get their food and keep that staff protected. And then different medical offices around the area as well. Next slide, please. And I think we have a quick video. This is one of the standard models that we offer. So you can see the front piece has little tabs and the 2 side returns have slits that are cut into it. So you just really quickly pop things into place, they stay, and it's as easy as that. Great, next slide, okay. Our GoGuard options, these are our freestanding units that are portable. We have 2 standard sizes, 42 inch wide or 60 inch wide, and that I apologize, there's a mistake there. It says 32 inches high, but that frame can actually be raised to 72 inches high. So it must be a typo there. We've done some custom ones. A different dental clinic wanted one to be over 8 feet tall. So we did that just last week, got it out to them and they're very happy. For the standard options you see, those are starting at $700 per shield plus shipping, but they're relatively lightweight for being that full fledged frame. They're easily assembled. You can move them around as needed, so it's always a benefit. Next slide, please. All right, and then our sprayers. So as I mentioned, we'd partnered with Graco to be one of their authorized distributors. You can see here this airless sprayer just works really well compared to doing a hand spray and wipes. So if you want to watch the video. So you can see the Santa sprayer from Graco is on the left compared to on the right, someone just doing this manually with spraying and wiping. So they're able to cover much more ground, much more quickly than if they were doing it with a hand spray. All right, you can go to the next slide if you'd like. Thank you. All right, so for disinfecting applications, it's good for food service, transportation, housing, sports, hospitality, healthcare, anything where you'd want to be able to get throughput, I think, is something that's going to benefit from having this kind of airless sprayer. Next slide. And these are the different options that are available through Graco. I can talk a bit more about those if anybody has any questions. My contact information will be on one of the last slides. But the actual sprayer solutions that we have, we offer this BioEsk. It's US EPA registered, so it's broad spectrum, and it fights the virus that causes COVID-19 in 4 minutes, and it also meets the sustainability purchasing requirements for LEEDS credits. All right, and then my contact information is right there. If you guys have any questions about more pricing, we have sales sheets. I believe we're also offering a 30% discount through the month of November for Afaxys members. So please get in touch if you have any questions. We can do quotes over the phone, even if you've got kind of a complex office environment. So we're here to help however we can, and we really appreciate the opportunity. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Hope. That was very informative, and I can say that we really appreciate the fact that Gateway made a noble decision to help out during COVID. So thank you for doing that as a company and for also sharing with us and supporting us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us.
So I believe we have a polling question here. So let's read over this and answer if you would please. Okay, and we have our results here. So we see about 70% of our offices are currently open, which is surprising to me. And then it looks like most people are really looking for those disinfectant type sprayers in their offices. So good information to have. And thank you, Hope, again for presenting to us today. Okay, our final supplier today we have is Mr. Chris Boyd. He is the Director of National Accounts and Distribution for Medicine. So welcome, Chris.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Certainly appreciate the time, and hopefully you'll find this useful. Next slide, please. There does say, okay, perfect. So I want to start off by talking about where this product fits in. You guys are obviously aware of from the termination of pregnancy side of it, but we also launched a commercial organization back June 1st to start looking into the benefits for induction of labor and other procedures. We're going to focus the first part of this on the induction of labor landscape. Data is a little dated. This goes back to 2018, but roughly about a third of all pregnancies, turn out with cesarean sections. Based on some ACOG guidelines for safety and prevention, they're trying to do everything they can possible to bring those numbers down. And it's recommended right now, we're at 33%. The WHO and the US health system would like us to get down to the 10 to 15% range. Next slide, please. A little bit of a delay, I think, on my end. Yeah, there we go. This is a different way to break that down. If you look again, roughly 4 million births that are done each year, approximately 25% require some sort of intervention through the induction of labor. About 70% of those then need cervical ripening, and that's where Dial-A-Pan comes in. Next slide, please. As far as expected IOL cases or procedures, those are expected to increase quite a bit over the next coming years, both United States and internationally. That is due to some evolving attitudes, more because of the cesarean section rate that they're trying to decrease, importance of patient satisfaction, trying to change the way it's looked at. There was an ARRIVE trial that we'll talk about on the next slide, please. I apologize, this is a pretty bad delay. Maybe what I'll do is I'm going to pull up my presentation myself and I'll run off that, but you can still go through that. As far as the ARRIVE trial goes, the primary endpoint was looking at neonatal outcomes with death and complications. While it was not statistically significant, you can see we just missed that mark for full-term labor. However, on the secondary side of it, at 38 weeks, we did show a significantly lower rate of cesarean section and hypertensive disorders. Those were obviously leaning toward the statistical significance as well. So it suggests that induction at 38 weeks may help reduce cesarean sections. We're also studying that a little further to complete the data set. Next slide, please. As far as the anticipated evolution of practice, we know that there's going to be a rise in induction of labor at full term. We believe that that's going to increase the rate of cervical ripening procedures. There's a strain on the clinical infrastructure right now. If you have a patient that is at full term but not ready to deliver, they're taking up bed space. It's costing money to the institutions. So we're trying to speed the process up a little bit. And then certainly having an outpatient clinical or cervical ripening option is something that the market is looking very favorable toward. So next slide. Okay, next slide, I'm sorry. So introducing Dial-A-Pan. So Dial-A-Pan is a non-pharmacological mechanical dilator that was really designed for gentle, proven predictability around cervical ripening, specifically for the induction of labor. It's also used whenever cervical ripening is desired, such as other gynecological procedures. You heard earlier about IUD insertion, DNC, DNE. Anytime the cervix needs preparation to be able to get up into the uterus. It is contraindicated, however, in an apparent genital tract infection. And it is used, it's a one-time use, so it should never be reused. Next slide, please. This is a depiction of how the rod grows. Starts off as a hydrogel. It's a proprietary aquaquil technology. It absorbs the fluid from the cervix, and as it absorbs, it starts to expand, as you see, from 0 to it can be left in for 24 hours. So there's your time frame across. The diagram right in the middle shows that within 4 to 6 hours, the rod itself expands to about 80% of its size. So from the time you put it in to the time it's at 24 hours, it can increase up to almost 4 times its size in diameter. Next slide, please. So as far as the mode of action goes, there's actually 3 modes of action. So the first one is that when you implant the rod itself, it begins to draw moisture out. So by drawing the moisture out, it starts to soften the cervix. Next slide. As it's drawing that moisture out, what you're seeing is then the rods start to increase in size. So then it's starting to put what we call the mechanical mechanism of action. So it's pushing against the cervix. So it's exerting radial pressure, against that cervix, which is again helping to expand it. Next slide, please. And then the last mode of action of the 3 is the physiological, and that is where you're putting pressure on those walls, which then makes the collagen inside the fiber start to become soft. And as it's continuing on, it will continue the prostaglandin, get released, softening your cervix. Next slide. Fortunately, this is very hard with this delay, so I do apologize. So as far as being well tolerated and preferred by patients, so 93% of patients describe this as completely comfortable and fully acceptable. They were able to get better sleep, more relaxation time. They could do daily activities. And as you see, 93% of the patients reported full acceptance of this. Next slide, please. As far as the daily activities go, with Dilapan inserted, you're able to walk around comfortably without any tubing that some of the competitive products may have. You're able to shower, you can use the toilet, you can perform just your daily routine, even in the comfort of your own home. Sleep while the cervix ripening was considered very gentle and gradual, with 80% of patients being able to sleep the night before. Next slide, please. Kind of in conclusion, this wraps up everything. There's worldwide approval, extensive peer review, there's multiple modes of action, consistent clinical efficacy, strong safety profile, broad utility amongst patient types, patient satisfaction scores, which we'll continue to do more studies on, and it's a sterile product. So we hope that when ripening is needed, that Dilapan will certainly be the top choice. Next slide. As far as our contracting opportunity goes, we have discounted for Afaxys members 15% off the current list price. So you see there it's $1,700 or $68 a rod. The smaller rods, the 355s, only come in a box of 10. Next slide.
Okay, looks like we're up to our polling question. Okay, so this is an Afaxys polling question. What is the best day of the week for you to attend a webinar? And then what is the best time of day for you to attend a webinar? So if you would please answer those questions. While we're doing that, I'll say thank you to Chris. It was, thank you very much for your time and presenting to us today. It's very interesting information. We're so excited to have you in medicine on contract with Afaxys to support our women's initiative here. So thank you.
Yep, thank you for the opportunity.
Here's some interesting information in case you guys would like to see. Tuesdays seems to be our favorite day of the week for a webinar, and 10 to 12. So good information. Thanks for answering our poll there. Okay, so now we're up to our Q&A session. Jill, did we have any questions come through during the presentation?
We had one where they were asking if the slides would be available after the webinar, but Rachel was so kind to respond. So yes, we will be able to share the slides with everybody after, but if there are any other questions, please feel free to type them in, and I'll be sure to share them with the group here so we can respond.
Okay. So yeah, let's give everyone on the call just a few minutes to type in some questions.
Nothing so far.
Okay. Well, I wanted to take this time again to thank each and every one of you for joining the webinar, our members, and also our suppliers who were kind enough to take the time to create their presentations and share them with us today, and spend their time walking us through the products and services and the discounts that they're offering to our Afaxys members. So thank you to each one of you again. We do appreciate your time. And Jill, I will turn it over to you to decide when we should close up shop. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you everyone so much. I agree. And if there are no questions here, since we'll be sharing the information and it has everyone's contact info, I'm sure they could reach out to you directly if they have any further questions, but it doesn't look like it. So it looks like we can conclude a few minutes early today.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. Everyone have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.